Hundreds of billions are flowing out of China yearly. The middle class is falling back into poverty. According to recent reports, the scale of illegal capital outflows may be as high as $254 billion in the 4 quarters. China's current economic situation is giving rise to significant social and international shifts, reflected in phenomena like capital outflows, widening income disparities, and the emigration of wealthy individuals. Domestically, the widening wealth gap and the struggles of the middle class foster social uncertainty. Internationally, large-scale capital flight and the emigration of the wealthy to countries such as Japan reflect unease among China's affluent class regarding the nation's economic and political future. Former Chinese media figure Zhao Lanjian revealed in an interview with Look at China that as early as 15 years ago, substantial wealth had already begun to flow out of China. Capital flight and China's economic difficulties. The collapse of China's real estate market and the uncertainty surrounding its economic outlook have triggered significant capital outflows. Despite strict government-imposed capital controls and a $50,000 annual foreign exchange limit for individuals, some wealthy Chinese continue to transfer funds overseas through various means. Data suggests that illegal fund transfers may have reached as high as $254 billion in the 4 quarters ending in June of this year. In recent years, increasing numbers of Chinese have lost confidence in the domestic economy, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, the government's crackdown on private enterprises, and the downturn in the real estate market. The International Monetary Fund, IMF, forecasts that China's economic growth could drop from the current 5% to 3% in the next few years. The collapse of the real estate sector has eroded a large portion of household wealth, further accelerating capital outflows. To bypass capital controls, individuals with resources use methods such as overvaluing imported goods, trading in cryptocurrencies, and purchasing art to transfer funds abroad. Although risky and illegal, these approaches still appeal to those willing to take the chance. In response, the Chinese government has increased its enforcement in recent years, arresting individuals who use cryptocurrencies or other illicit methods to move funds, aiming to curb this phenomenon through stricter penalties. Nonetheless, capital outflows continue to grow, even exceeding the levels of 2015 and 2016. Unlike those years, however, China's economy is now larger and therefore less affected by such outflows. Some companies have also transferred assets abroad through legal or illegal methods, often using offshore companies and art auctions to store funds in places without capital controls, such as Hong Kong, before transferring them to other countries. Despite China's ban on cryptocurrency trading, it remains a favored tool for the wealthy to move assets overseas. The impact of large-scale capital flight on the Chinese economy cannot be ignored. It not only pressures the RMB depreciation, but also indicates waning investor confidence in domestic economic policies. Although the government has introduced stimulus measures that may boost the economy in the short term, the trend of capital flight shows no signs of slowing. Unless domestic economic conditions improve and investment returns increase, capital outflows are likely to persist. Chinese wealthy individuals immigrate to Japan as a safe haven. As uncertainty over China's economic future grows, many wealthy Chinese seek to protect their assets and quality of life through emigration. Japan, one of the top destinations for Chinese high-net-worth individuals, is becoming a popular choice. Housing prices in Tokyo, Hokkaido, and other regions have surged due to increased demand from wealthy Chinese, even revitalizing Japan's broader real estate market. This immigration trend has not only driven up real estate prices in cities like Tokyo, but also raised concerns within Japanese society. For example, 1/3 of the owners of luxury apartments in Tokyo are reportedly Chinese, and in some neighborhoods, Chinese residents make up 1/4 or more of the total population. Japan's real estate market has become increasingly dependent on the purchasing power of wealthy Chinese. Alongside relatively low property prices and proximity to China, Japan's stable social environment and high quality of life are also major draws for affluent Chinese. According to a Henley & Partners report, in 2022, 13,500 high-net-worth individuals emigrated from China, placing China among the countries with the highest loss of high-net-worth residents globally. Moreover, Japan's relatively lenient visa policies, such as the corporate management and senior expert visas, provide a legal pathway for Chinese wealthy to live long-term in the country. After settling in Japan, many of these individuals even choose to change their names to better integrate into Japanese society. Widening wealth gap and middle-class hardships. China's economic challenges underscore a more pressing social issue: income inequality. According to the China Social Security Association, by 2023, over 600 million Chinese citizens earn less than 3,500 yuan per month, underscoring the vast wealth gap, particularly among low-income groups. Among China's 720 million employed population, only 110 million qualify as middle-income earners, with monthly incomes between 5,000 and 10,000 yuan, and only about 700,000 individuals earn over 1 million yuan annually. China's income distribution follows a typical pyramid shape, with a small elite controlling most wealth, while the vast low-income group remains vulnerable during economic downturns. Economist He Jianbing points out that this income inequality creates significant instability within Chinese society. The middle class, traditionally the backbone of China's economy, is bearing the brunt of the economic downturn and may face collective poverty. During China's rapid economic development, a true middle class never fully formed, and the so-called middle-income group has suffered the most in the face of economic downturns. Many people have lost the wealth they previously accumulated, and economic pressures have intensified their feelings of unease and anxiety. This widening wealth gap has exacerbated social imbalances and heightened uncertainty about the future. At a press conference during the third session of the 13th National People's Congress in May 2020, the late Premier Li Keqiang remarked, "China is a populous developing country with 600 million people earning only about 1,000 yuan a month." This statement, considered a major truth of his administration, drew widespread attention domestically and internationally. 3 years later, in December 2023, the China Social Security Association published a report on its official website titled, "Approximately 964 million people in our country have a monthly income below 2,000 yuan." The report, based on data from the China Income Distribution Annual Report 2021, jointly issued by the Employment Distribution and Consumption Department of the National Development and Reform Commission and the China Income Distribution Research Institute at Beijing Normal University, highlights the scale of low-income individuals in China. It reveals that approximately 600 million people earn less than 1,090 yuan per month, accounting for 42.85% of the population, while around 964 million people earn less than 2,000 yuan per month. Zhao Lanjian reveals the inside story of Fox Hunt. Former Chinese journalist Zhao Lanjian told, "Look at China," that as far back as 2010, large-scale embezzlement of Chinese funds had already led to a substantial outflow of capital from China. China has very strict regulations on foreign exchange and remittances. Any overseas transfer of significant funds requires the cooperation of relevant government departments, including the Ministry of Commerce and the State Administration of Foreign Exchange. I knew a young man working in a commercial port who primarily helped large companies legally or illegally transfer significant amounts of funds overseas. These companies or individuals needed authorization from the Ministry of Commerce to invest abroad, and middlemen involved in these transactions received substantial benefits. As such, transfers required government authorization. Zhao recalled, in 2012, Zhao accompanied a provincial bank president on a tour to inspect banks in the U.S. and a Central American country. The amount of money being moved was staggering, and the middlemen profited tremendously. By then, I understood how these vast sums of wealth belonging to the Chinese people were transferred overseas and turned into private property and legal income, he said. Zhao also commented on the Chinese Communist Party's CCP Fox Hunt operation as a transactional arrangement between the CCP and corrupt officials. When Chinese citizens discuss the CCP's lavish overseas spending, they think of it as merely an abstract concept. Few see the capital flight underlying this spending. The Ministry of Public Security created the Fox Hunting Office to address this, yet its results are minimal. Zhao also mentioned an official from Jilin Province, a family acquaintance who had transferred funds and his children to Japan years earlier. He even manages assets and businesses within China for a high-ranking official who fled abroad. They enjoy luxurious lives, both politically and financially, far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. I met him in 2019, and his statements still astonish me, Zhao reflected. The so-called achievements of China's reform and opening up are built on the blood and sweat of the Chinese people. The vast social wealth produced by Chinese citizens through hard labor has been siphoned globally by corrupt officials. This plundering has inflicted more trauma on China than any foreign invasion, he concluded.